Hi, my name is Torsten Dikow and I'm a research entomologist for Diptera at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. Today, I'm going to talk about the USNM Diptera collection and give you an overview of who works here, who is responsible for the collection, who you can contact, as well as give you some data about our collection itself and the digitization efforts that we are undertaking. This presentation is obviously recorded, but if you'd like to explore some of the links I provide in this presentation, please download a PDF from the DOI at the bottom of the screen. You can download a PDF and then use it for exploring some of those. There are 4 US government agencies who work here at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History to do research on the collection as well as curate it. And all of us have the same responsibilities in terms of curation and access to the collection. So we are in charge of those collections and we divide those up. There are currently 4 research entomologists doing this work. The Smithsonian, that's myself at the moment, but we have had 4 different curators over the past 100 years or so. The US Department of Agriculture with the Systematic Entomology Lab has had the highest number of curators so far, about 15 of them. And currently Alan Norbaum is the one person is still employed here. Most recently, there's another branch of the US Department of Agriculture, the National Identification Service, that also has an embedded affiliated scientist, Woogie Kim in this case, working here. And the US Department of Defense runs the Walter Reed Biosystematic Unit that focuses on the blood feeding Diptera research. And they also have had a number of curators over the past 100 years. To give you an overview of sort of the number of Diptera researchers and curators that have worked here, I've just plotted sort of the graph of our history. And currently there are 4, but you can see that in the 1970s and 80s, there were actually quite a few more Dipterists working here. Here are the currently active 4 people. We have divided up the collection, which is mostly sort of based on historical division of the collection. And I'm providing higher taxa here just to give you an idea of what we are responsible for. But you can always reach out to any of us to find the exact families that you're interested in. We have, our collection is at 2 locations in downtown Washington, D.C., where I'm sitting right now, the National Museum of Natural History, with the biggest part of the collection here on the East Court, 6th floor. And you can see pictures of the collection space on the top right. And then we also have an offsite facility at the Museum Support Center, which is in adjacent Maryland, not too far from here. And the Walter Reed Biosystematic Unit has the headquarters there, and all the blood-sucking flies are there, for example, as well as all the crane flies. We also store many slides there, as well as the frozen tissue collection from the National Museum of Natural History that you see a picture of in the bottom right. To date, we have 158 families of Diptera here in the collection. This doesn't include the numbers of the recently brought the recently divided up California, for example, for which we have specimens, but we're missing 4 families for which we don't have any specimens in the collection right now. We also have an active offsite enhancement program, which means that curators at other institutions have taken the specimens of an entire family or set of families to their institution and are curating and enhancing it right there. So if you want to have access to those collections, the Bombyliidae, Loxanoidea, and Pipunculidae, you actually have to contact the curators who are in charge of those collections at those different institutions. And I'm going to talk to that a little bit about in the end as well. Here's just a broad overview of those families for which we have the most specimens. And the data that I'm showing here and throughout the talk come from an inventory that we have had that focus on the Pint collection from about 2015. But the data are probably very accurate still, while the collection has grown, it hasn't grown that substantially, as you might expect. And you can see the highest number of specimens is really from the Culicidae, from the mosquitoes that are studied by the Walter Reed Biosystematics Unit. But we also have more than 300,000 Ephidoidae specimens, for example. Here's a graph showing those families with the highest number of species. And in this case, for families for which we have more than 1,000 species in the collections. And here the Limoniidae and Tipulidea, the crane flies, with about 11,000 species together, are the biggest collection. This is the C.P. Alexander collection that is housed at the Museum Support Center. But we have other families with many species in our collection. At the end of this PDF, you can explore the graphs for numbers for all the other families, which I won't talk about, but if you download the PDF, you can access that information as well. Here are just some numbers about the collection. We have about 2.9 million specimens in the PIN collection here at MSC and in the offsite collection. 300,000 specimens are approximately 300,000 are out on loan. And so in total, we come to about 3.2, almost 3.3 million specimens of Diptera that we have, PIN specimens. Of those, about 2 million are identified to species. We also have about 600,000 slides and also a cryopreserved specimen in liquid nitrogen that I mentioned earlier at the biorepository at the Museum Support Center. And that is a collection that is growing through our own fieldwork, as well as barcoding initiatives funded by the Global Genome Initiative that was housed here at the museum. And that meant that many legs were taken off from some families in the collection, and actually one leg was taken for CO1 barcoding, and the other leg was put into the biorepository for future DNA extraction. We have about 56,000 species of Diptera in our collection, and we estimate about 26,000 primary types. That number isn't totally figured out, and I had obtained money for actually a contractor to go through the physical PIN collection, PIN type collection, which is segregated from the main collection, and actually count all the specimens, the species, and also update the records in our database system, EMU, to have an accurate count of how many primary types we have. And that obviously, due to the pandemic, wasn't possible over the last year and a half or so, but hopefully once the pandemic is finished and we have access to the collection for everybody again, that we can finish that project. We also have right now an active primary type specimen photography project, again with outside money that I was able to obtain. We have photographed the Townsend tachynidae, which are soon made available. These are important neotropical species, focusing on some autorephus taxa as well as on the Syrphidae, to sort of finish up all the Syrphid types that Chris Thompson, and through his support, hasn't been able to photograph. Let me switch a little bit over to access to data and images from our specimens. We have a data portal at our website, so you can see the link on the top of the screen. There's three main tabs: the type search, the specimen inventory, and the genetic sample search, where you can access specimen data and images. And you can also focus that search to include only records with images or only records with geographic coordinates. And this collection, or this digital collection, is sort of growing, but it's obviously growing slow with limited resources that we have right now. Here's just to show you on the bottom right an overview of how a detailed record looks like. You notice the barcode number, the unique specimen identifier, is listed, and this is the important number to refer to when you cite a specimen. And please use it in full as USNM ENT and an 8-digit number without any hyphens, dashes, but including all the zeros. This number will always be on a specimen and associated with it. And at the bottom of the screen, you see a globally unique identifier, a GeoID, that is used in an ARC system, which is similar to DOIs, to always have a permanent link to the actual database record, the public record that you can see here. So that's important if you wanted to include the URL to a record with photos, for example, to our database system. I just want to briefly show you how you can download the images that we have on our website. If you find a record with images, you can click on the image itself, and it shows you the format with the image size. And if you click on that number, the underlined number, you come to a system which is shown on the lower right screen, of where you can download either the full resolution TIFF file that we provided, so this could be 50, 60, 80, 90 megabytes large, or have smaller, lower resolution files for other users. And you can download those easily from there. Note that all Smithsonian photographs of all Smithsonian Museum objects and specimens are in the public domain. They have a Creative Commons license of CC0, so they can be used for anything you want, used in publications, They can also be used to make art or anything with it. And it's important to note that we would like you to acknowledge that the specimen that you're showing or the photograph that you might include in your publications comes from a Smithsonian USNM specimen by including the USNM ENT number associated with it, so that people, especially in the scientific field, will always know where that photo comes from and can go back to it, to the specimen as well as the digital record. You can also download the photos of specimens from the Smithsonian Open Access portal, which is actually a portal that has photographs of all objects from the Smithsonian collections in one place. Let me switch a little bit to give you some overview of the digitization initiatives that I have done in the groups and the families that I am responsible for, together with the museum specialist Aaron Kolsky, who works with me on Diptera, as well as on the aquatic insects, for which I'm also responsible for. We are focused, for example, on data capturing all specimen data from families for which we have fewer than 100 specimens. And that's mostly because these are probably rare families in nature, rare families in collections, and providing access to these data might really be helpful to the community at large. Here's an example of Natalie Maisidi that we have both data captured as well as photographed at least one of the two specimens we have in our collection, and then provide data to GBIF, as you can see on the right screen shot there. We focus on other smallish families as well that have been well curated or that for which we have expertise in-house. And here's an example of Nimes Trinity. We have about 770 specimens, so it's a it's a reasonable size collection for this family and probably one of the bigger ones in the world. And providing data of these pollinators might actually be helpful to communities around the world in doing conservation studies or climate change studies or others. And you can see on the right there how we label those drawers from the outside as well as the cabinets to say that all the specimens are data captured, so please don't put any specimens in there that are not data captured to add noise to that collection. And you can also see on the big photograph of the drawer that orange label that is on the side of each unit tray indicates that this unit tray has been data captured entirely. We provide access to the data on our portal that I just mentioned, as well as the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, GBIF. And here you can see a snapshot or screenshot of the data as of today from our museum data set there that are only flies, and there are 46,000 records for which we have with coordinates, and then about 70,000 records overall, and some of those obviously don't have coordinates yet. On one of my last slides, I want to highlight the Williston Diptera Research Fund as a funding opportunity to obtain funding to come here to do research in our collection. We also provide field work with the anticipation that some of the specimens will be sent to the USNM, as well as the participation at the International Congresses of Dipterology or at Fly School. We sort of have been funding mostly junior scientists, master students, graduate students, or early career scientists with this fund. We have about $6,000 available each year, and but it's an important way to obtain funding to do research on flies and especially collections-based research and come here, for example. The deadline is December 1st, so if you're considering that, please go to this link, download the PDF, to click on this link and see the details on funding. And then the Smithsonian fellowships on the bottom, just to give you an idea of ways to come here for longer periods for early career or MSc students, as well as early PhD students in the 10-week graduate student program, or as pre-doctoral and postdoctoral fellows. Here again, the contact information for the 4 curators who are on site, the 3 curators who work on the offsite taxa at their institution, and then also for, if you're interested in the C.P. Alexander Cranefly collection, feel free to reach out to John Gelhaus at the Academy of Natural Sciences and Drexel University in Philadelphia, who is helping us curate this collection. And with his expertise, we really try to make this collection accessible. And last but not least, follow us on Twitter. I try to tweet about the USNM Diptera collection from time to time, as well as the links to download both this PDF presentation, as well as a flyer about our collection with different information.